Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
हेलो 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 हेलो
हेलो हेलो हेलो हेलो हेलो चेक। हेलो चेक। अब ओके है?
The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old but on building the new. With this note, I, Neha Gulati, on behalf of entire IITM fraternity, welcome you all to the National Conference on Management in the New Normal Challenges, Opportunities, and Strategies. COVID 19 has impacted all industries, sectors, and walks of life. Current restrictions will likely remain for an indefinite period. Restricted travel, social distancing, and workplace constraint. Each global factor has transformed in a disruptive manner that is leading to development of blue ocean strategies in each industry that were completely unknown till yesterday. Technology and digitalization have become the two survival pillars in the new normal and would continue to do so. With the changes that have taken place in the global economy, organizations and institutions have been pressurized to change their ways of working and also revise their future growth objectives. The new normal in the current disrupted world needs to be further researched for the possible solutions that can be developed by both academia and industry for survival. In order to develop a creative approach towards the future business scenario, a change in strategies, structure, policies, practices, and systems is required for which the conference aims to work towards. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varde Kamarupini. Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhirbhav Tume Sada. Like every other auspicious occasion, let's start this event by offering our prayers to Ma Saraswati and conduct our customary lamp lighting ceremony as a tribute to her. For this, I will request Director General Professor Dr. C.P. Chawla Sir, Professor Dr. Vani Ma'am, Professor Dr. Monica Kulshresht Ma'am, Professor Dr. Gitali Banerjee Ma'am, and Mr. R.K. Singh Sir to come up on stage. Thank you so much, everyone. Now I request Professor Dr. C.P. Chawla Sir, Dr. Vani Ma'am, Dr. Monica Kulshresht Ma'am, and Dr. Gitali Banerjee Ma'am to kindly occupy the chair on the stage. Thank you so much, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome our guest of honor, Mr. Tamil Selvan Ramadas Sir, keynote speaker, Mr. C.A. Ravi Sir, and our chief guest, Professor Dr. Nagendra Chaudhary Sir. Before moving forward, let me introduce our college through an audio-video clip. This was our college video. The next video will help us understand the concept of our conference. I now request Professor Dr. C.P. Chawla sir, Director General, Institute of Innovation in Technology and Management, to deliver the welcome address.
Places where it should be thought creation. Each one of us will have different views about the subject also. Since this pandemic started, I'll call it very unfortunate one, once in century event, nobody could foresee. One effect which everybody felt was disruption in supply chain management. We realized that today's age is of digitization. Chips is the oil of industry. 37% chips are being made in one country, Taiwan. 10% chips are made in Singapore. 10% chips are made in China. India, which is the second biggest user of mobile phone and growth, 95% of chips are to be imported. We don't make chips. So major supply chain disruption happened. Also the question arises that why don't we make our own chips? It's not that money is a problem. We don't have technology. And the countries which have got the technology, they also know that chips is the oil of present day economies around the world, why will they sell it to us? So this is the major lesson learned during this pandemic. In management education, we always taught our students that supplier should not be one. Wherever, in whichever industry you are working, there should be more than one supplier. The disruption may happen. But first time, it was known that we should not depend upon one country also. There may be 10 suppliers in China for chips. But then again, you are fixed with one country. So if there is a disruption in one country, should not be one. Wherever, in whichever industry you are working, then there is a problem. You know, out of this slogan of Atmanirbhar Bharat, deglobalization, Brexit, America first, all these slogans are a result of this realization that let us not depend upon other countries, and that also when it's question of just depending upon one country. So this is the first lesson which all over the world has been recognized, that it's always better to spread your supply sources. So this was the first lesson. Now the second lesson is that now, although India seems to be going in second wave of this problem, but there are certain sectors of the economy which are recovering. There are certain sectors of the economy which are doing better than earlier times. But there are sectors of the economy which are going down also. On the positive side, if we see pharmaceutical industry, health, digitization, companies like Zoom doing much better. IT sector also seems to be doing better, because only yesterday I was reading that Cognizant, Accenture, they are all going to increase the salary of their employees. Some companies are giving bonuses also. That's a sign that these companies are not doing bad. They are recovering and doing better. In economics, we call it a K-shape recovery. Try to see, visualize the word K, letter K means some sectors of the economy are doing better and some sectors of the economy are going minus side. On minus side, hospitality, leisure travel, basically discretionary spending is going downwards. Discretionary spending. Because when there is a pressure on my pocket money, where will I spend the money? I am not going to spend on discretionary spending. Whatever I can postpone, I will postpone the spending. So there are, if certain areas of the economy are doing better, certain areas are doing worse. Now, what do we expect from the government to do? It is not something which could be foreseen, so you cannot blame the governments. And for our knowledge as educational institute, we must know that every government passes on the baton to the next government. Only politicians may say that no, we are doing better than earlier ones and we are doing worse and like that. But we must appreciate as teachers, that's a baton race. One prime minister comes, he does his best to the best ability of him and his staff, and he passes on the baton to the next prime minister. That is the reality. Now the situation we are in, what the government can do to offset the effect of reduction in discretionary spend, they are increasing the spending in infrastructure. Infrastructure has got a multiplier effect. It creates more jobs. It creates more assets. Some people are even now questioning the government's decision to sell profit-making companies. So all these things, because there is a upheaval and everywhere in the world, and the present governments everywhere have to rethink their priorities and find out where there is more return on investment. If I can sell a company and then the money taken from A company, I used to create a B company, and B company will give me more ROI, return on investment, than I must do. So these are some of the complications at macro level during this pandemic. Third point is that this work from home, which online education also comes into that bracket, it is also having dual effect. Work from home is giving advantage to certain type of services because the cost is being reduced, commercial space, rents have gone down. People are ready to work from home. They are finding more comfortable. Right now, because physically I can see more ladies, generally in any recession, men were at a disadvantage. They were the ones who were losing jobs. But this time it has been observed across the world, ladies are losing jobs. Because when you are doing work from home, then there is a disruption at home by your children, by husband, by in-laws. And hence productivity of ladies are going down. More effect. Now, see the positive side. When the rent of commercial space has gone down, obviously the cost of services being delivered goes down. Our products become more competitive in the world. So this is the positive side. But I was listening to a BBC interview. A girl in USA is saying, this online education is not good. I want to ask a question to a professor and suddenly the net connection goes down. Now this is America. Imagine what happened to a third world countries. Even, and generally it has been observed, the higher the GDP of a country, the better the connectivity is online. Work from home, easier. 45% people in Switzerland, they have got facility to work from home, no problem. Same figure in USA is 37%. Same figure in Cambodia, 11%. India, 24%. So, although it may be technically feasible to provide services from home, but have we got the infrastructure to do these things from home? Even my students are not very comfortable with online classes only. They have been coming to us that can we do something on offline also. But with increasing problem again, second wave showing some signs of emerging, we are also scared. I am requesting all of you also to wear mask, social distancing. Then how do we cope the students and create more problem? Health is more important. Life is more important than anything else. Now, if you ask the challenges, the biggest challenge in India, if you ask me, there are many challenges, But if you ask me to say one challenge, biggest challenge, according to my thoughts, is employment. During last 5 years, according to CMI data, we have lost 73 lakh jobs in last 5 years instead of increasing the jobs. So we have been telling that no, India is a young country, we have big potential to exploit the labor force. But it can be a labor disaster also if we are not able to harness that potential. I stay in Faridabad. I will give you an example of Faridabad. There is a company called Shahi Exports, Sector 28 Faridabad. Shahi Exports. Total assets are $185 million. And they employ 106,000 people. 106,000 people, $185 million worth of assets. Now, visualize RIL, Reliance Industries Limited. Total assets $110 billion. This is 185 million. That is $110 billion. Total employment 2,25,000. Now if I calculate, try to bring the same numbers, every $2 million of assets is creating 5 jobs in RIL. Reliance is able to create 5 jobs by spending $2 million. Shahi Exports is creating 1,260 jobs for the same amount. Now, RIL, you are teachers and students, ask yourself what qualification does the RIL require to get a job? Shahi Exports is giving employment, 67% placement is given to ladies. The education level required is class 5. Training required 6 months. The biggest apparel exporter of India, 65 places are there in India where they are making the apparels. They are in 9 states. Now ask yourself, which model suits India better? We are short of capital, but we are creating capital intensive industry. So we should go for, now see, China has lost big chunk of apparel export business. Where it has gone? Not to India. It's gone to Bangladesh. It's gone to Vietnam, not to India. So we must scratch our heads and ask ourselves, what happened? How come? Why can't we compete with Bangladesh and Vietnam also? But this is again half a story. Question will come, why then do we create capital intensive industries? The reasoning is, I can tell you another figure, more than 80% of our workers are either in farming or in tiny industry. Tiny industry is the one where the investment in plant and machinery is less than 5 lakhs. Now, because of the tiny sector, quality goes down. We are not able to produce high quality products then in tiny industry. We are not able to compete at the international level. So things are not easy because there are two sides of the coin. Ideally, we should go for labor intensive industry, like toys, like apparel. But then, We are living in 91 mental frame of work. And hence the importance of capital also is there. Importance of labor also is there. And the government of the day has to balance between these two extreme sides. It's not easy. Now if you ask me that the problem of farming, for example, farmers on the borders of Delhi, if I tell you very frankly my thoughts, the only alternative is to remove the people from agriculture to services and industry. We are just having too many people producing too little in the farms. And these are symptoms, these are not the problems. Although some of you or students may come up with this question, कि sir, do you think employment is the problem or do you think population itself is the problem? We are just too many for the size of the land we have got. 17% of the world population is in India, and God has given us 2% of the land mass. So there's a basic distortion. But the college we are working, we give value addition to students in BBA, BCA, BCom. My request to faculty members is that most of the jobs of your students, my students, will be generated in services industry. And in services industry, the most important aspect is your attitude, your command of your communication language. So we should try our best to prepare our students to meet the challenges. These challenges have been before pandemic also, just that it has made it worse. We have to work extra mile so that at least, see, at micro level, we are responsible for our students. We must make them eligible to get the jobs. If there are less jobs, at least our students must get a job. It's very good to talk about whole India, all the students, everybody who is 19, 24 years of age. But there is a challenge there also. Only 25% people of 19 to 24 age group are in the higher education right now, they are studying. Only 25% people. This figure in Japan, America, Europe is more than 70%. Now we are struggling at 25%. According to new education policy, our target is to reach to 50%. So there also is a challenge. But let us not lose heart. I am sure if we are committed and we treat every student as our own child or brother, we can do value addition and make them capable of getting a job. Now these were some of my thoughts, and because of the time allotted to me, I stop my lecture here. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your words of wisdom that radiated a source of energy within us and has set a perfect platform for our speakers to deliver their presentations. Thank you, sir. I am profusely elated to take an opportunity to introduce our guest of honor, Mr. Tamil Selvan Ramadas, sir, Finance Manager, Maritime Dubai. He is a strategic finance expert trained from Harvard Business School with international accreditations in finance accounting, project management, international arbitration, risk management, and maritime economics. He has proven record in delivering advisory function and decision support to top management and investment committees or boards. He has over 21 years of training experience for various professional certifications. He also served as a voluntary board member at the Dubai chapter of Institute of Management Accountants, USA. I would now request you, sir, to enlighten the audience with your valuable words. Sir, you are not audible to us.
So you are not audible to us. So kindly unmute yourself.
Sir, please unmute yourself. You are not audible to us.
So would you please once mute and then unmute, because your voice is not coming clear, not coming in fact. Would you, sir, please do me a favor, rejoin again, sir. Ravi sir, would you please speak, just check.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you are.
I can hear you.
Yeah, you are audible, sir. So there is some
Yes,
problem
yes.
in sir's mind, right?
Yes. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, you are audible. Yeah.
Great, great. Sorry for this small glitch here. Good morning. Salam alaikum from Dubai, and it's really a wonderful morning, maybe reaching the afternoon there in India, to meet you all on this virtual platform. Wow, what a great topic, management in the new normal. This has been the topic that has been highlighted more than thousands of times in this new pandemic time. I call this pandemic as a claustrophobic pandemic. The word claustrophobic stands for the fear of being constrained in close quarters. And for last 1 year, we are all having this phobia in our mind. Let it be in the economic world, let it be in the houses, let it be in the factories. We are all forced to work, interact in a more claustrophobic manner. That is what this new normal is all about. But having said that this is a new normal, we should work, we should learn how to work, how to live, how to go forward with this new normal. Let me start just by thanking the whole institution and also Dr. Chawla, who is the Director General of this institution, for inviting me as a guest of honor for this great forum. And just let me start with giving you some statistics. All the statistics mostly looks more disappointing. But as we said in the topic, we need to also have strategies to overcome this particular challenges, which we'll also look into it today. The global economy has shrunk by 4.4% in 2020. This is what the IMF report says that. This is worse since the Great Depression of 1930s. So we are not facing a Great Depression in not only the economic level, but also the health level. This is the Great Depression, and people are also carrying the depression in their minds. That is what this new normal has taught us. The only economy that is growing all this time is only China, with 2.3% in 2020. The worst industries that got affected, that is trembling, is is nothing but the travel and tourism and also the hospitality industries. We are struggling in the Middle East to fill up the hotels. In fact, only 10 to 20% of the occupancy rate is what we are trying to see because of the huge ban on the travel, and people are not able to visit this fantastic country. Otherwise, you can see people fly over all the way from different parts of the world to visit Dubai, and Dubai is always 60% filled with the foreign nationals who are visiting this country. So we are facing this tough challenge in this part of the world, and billions of dollars has been lost. Billions of dollars has been lost. So if you talk about the statistics of India, I just want to quote from some of the statistics. During the first 21 days of the full close down, it was expected 32,000 crore, that is nothing by near to 4.5 billion US dollar is supposed to be lost due to the lockdown. And during the extended lockdown, 8 trillion economy of India was functional only 4%, only to 25%, and up to 53% of the business in the country was projected to be significantly affected. So these are the very, very negative sides of this corona and the COVID impact on the economy. But talking about this, how to come out of this, this is the new management challenge. So new management challenge has to bring in new strategies to face these new challenges. We can't use old techniques, age-old techniques to face the new challenges. The work from home challenges, trying to work in distances, trying to work with 50% attendances, trying to reduce the fixed cost. These are all the great challenges we are trying to face in this part of the world and also in any part of the world. The good news is that the only two countries, that is Asian countries, that is going to lead the whole economy for the next 2021 and also going forward. The IMF has projected 8.8% growth for India and 8.2% for China. So we are well ahead of even the other great Asian nations. So this gives a lot of positive scope to India and also to other Asian nations. But what are the management challenges during this time? The biggest management challenge is how do you retain your employees? How do you retain your markets? How do you retain your market share? How do you save your cost? How do you bring in new revenue models? How do you really generate cash flows? These are the biggest challenges. I work for the Dubai maritime sector. I would say that we have slashed almost 40 to 50% of the travel cost. We have slashed most of the rental contracts. We have slashed most of the recurring cost which can be saved in terms of contractual negotiation. So talking from the budgeting perspective, we are introducing a new concept of encumbrance budgeting, which is called the real-time budgetary control, which is introduced in US and other government sectors. UAE is the first government entity to introduce something called encumbrance accounting with smart fiscal planning from the government side, which is trying to monitor the budget on a day-to-day level on a real-time control, so that the tab is going to the Prime Minister level so that he can see what is the budget being utilized on a day-to-day level, which means we have too much controlling on the cost side as well, because cost is a real function on the profitability, but still we have challenges. Now coming to the private sector, all these private sectors are having a big challenges of the hospitality industry and the travel industry. You can see that there are a lot of new ideas that is coming up. To quote a few examples, Emirates Airlines have chosen up to give a new revenue model wherein you can fill your extra seats for your passengers, where you can use it fully at almost 1/4 of the normal cost. For example, the travel cost from India to Bombay may be like 1,000 dirhams. Now they're saying that you can take another 400 dirhams ticket for the extra seats, which you can use it freely, because 50 to 40% only the seats are filled in as an occupancy. So there are new models that is coming out. There is something called dynamic pricing. There is something called how to really have price tags connected to other products. It's all being looked at. Secondly, we are also looking at how to reduce the cost. Cost reduction has been a very, very important strategy in this part of the world. Most of the rental buildings are being taken out, wherein the companies like IT sector, working from home sectors, and also service sectors have taken a big leap in terms of coming out of their contractuals, fixed rents being saved, so that in future people will be working from home even after the COVID pandemic. This has become a new norm now. So what is the next challenges for the managers? We're all talking about the cost challenge and the revenue challenge. The biggest challenge for being a manager here and the director of marketing, budgeting here, is that we need to really keep the employees in good morale. The attitude of the employees are very, very important during this particular time, because working from home for long times disturbs the family life and also decreases the productivity, as in the previous speech Dr. Chawla was saying it. How to maintain the productivity and also social life balancing, that has become a big challenge for most of the managers of any entities here. Now coming to the uh, industries which has really grown well is that the online industry. The online shopping behavior has been a great growth in this part of the world, and also the world data says that 3.9 trillion revenue has been made in 2020 alone, whereas a big share of giant is also shared in UAE, where there are entities like landmark groups which are into fashion and household articles and goods, where 90 percentage of the products has been purchased only through the online marketing. So you can see on the good side, the online industries are picked up. Similarly, the pharmaceutical companies, the mask and the hygiene product selling products has been very having a great growth, because in this part of the world, hygiene has been put on very first front, and vaccinations have been done for 40 to 50% of the people. So still the norms are very strict here. So you can see these industries which are catering to these type of products are in a very upside level. So now also coming to the next thing in this part of the world, this is a time a lot of mergers and consolidations have happened. To quote a few here, in UAE alone, in 2019 to 2020, almost the end, we saw $625 billion of merger, which has happened between big banks like Abu Dhabi Commercial Bank, the Hilal Bank, the Union Bank, and also between Dubai Islamic Bank and the Noor Bank. There was a lot of consolidation happening, which is worth almost more than $700 billion. And also the great builder of the Burj Khalifa, that is MR Properties, have also merged also and taken over the MR Mars. So during this pandemic time, people are brought into a lot of consolidation mode to make the cash flows more better, to reduce the cost, doing a cost rationalization. So these are the big changes that has been happening in this market as well. Now, coming to the growth that can happen in the future, we need to find out new strategies. As I told you, new strategies is all about how to maintain the market, how to increase your competition in the market by providing cost-effective products. There are a lot of scope to reduce the cost. At the same time, there are challenges to retain the market and retain the market share. One of the important and the most critical thing is to maintain the attitude and the skill sets of the employees. What about the new employees who are coming into the job? They are not even facing the new employees, new bosses, because they're forced to work from home. This is a big challenge. Training the new employees always through online mode is not a great thing. On the job training is very important. So we have to find techniques and tools. How do you keep the employees level of motivation at a very high level? So these are the few thoughts I want to share here. And last but not least, I would say that it is not that I'm so smart. It is just that I stay in the problem so longer. In the words of Albert Einstein, so we should learn how to stay very strong, longer times in terms of these problems, in terms of claustrophobic pandemic periods, and come out in a more strong level in the future. And I see that the growth for the Asian economies are very high. The students of these institutions and any other institution should learn new set of skills, human augmentation, Internet of IoTs, you talk about Internet of Behaviors, IOB, these are the new skills, artificial intelligence, these are the new terminology that is coming in the market. You will no longer work as accounting guys as normal in working in the SAP module. There are automated robotic tools. I sit in the IMA research committee as well in USA. We are talking about having a robot beside a particular CFO, which will give all the data augmented and give a very high level of analytical decision making to the CFO to make decisions. So we as accounting and finance fraternity trying to catch up with this technology. So with teaching faculties, so with pharmaceutical experts, so with any management career of any institution. So we are here to face a lot of challenges, not only because of the pandemic. This pandemic has brought in new technological invasive species into our lives, into the management career. So we need to be very much coping up with the challenge of the invasion that is happening, which is coupled with both with the pandemic and also with the technology. Hope that all our learners learn a lot, and we have to unlearn and learn new things. That is the new challenges that we have to take up. That is a new strategy we have to follow so as to come out of this pandemic and this claustrophobic mode in a more colorful manner. Thanks a lot once again. I don't want to take much of the others' times, and wish a great success for the whole institution, students, and also good luck for the entire Indian community there. Thanks a lot once again. Salam alaikum.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your great knowledge with us. It was really a privilege for all of us to hear your words. Thank you so much. The next dignitary to honor us with his presence is our keynote speaker, Mr. C.A. Ravi, sir. He has begun his career as a software professional in 1989. He has worked in services as well as product environments involving projects across the globe. He was the first managerial hire at Dell India Product Group and went on receiving the award of Best Manager in 2007. He wears many hats as an educator, music producer, and a management consultant. He is the founder of Raga School of Music, and his latest initiative, Alt Ed, is into people development programs. He has also produced multiple original instrumental music albums under the artist name of Instrumental Conversation. I would now request you, sir, to please share your valuable knowledge with us.
Thank you for that introduction. I hope everybody can hear me and can also see my first slide.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me, please? Okay. Can somebody confirm that you can see the first slide?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, great. So let me start off by thanking everyone at IITM for giving me this opportunity to share my views. And as Dr. Chawla started off by saying, there can be so many different perspectives. I'm sharing my own here. And Dr. Chawla came out with some very good points and some data to support not only the challenges that are there, but also the opportunities that are out there. And so did Mr. Tamil Ramdas. And I'm going to keep mine to more of a storytelling style, less of numbers, but like I said, different perspectives. So let me start off by, one second. Oh yes. Okay. So let's start off by first understanding what this normal is. And I hope you can see my second slide. There's a small lag, so I'm not able to make out. So just to put things into perspective, this new normal that we are talking about has resulted because of a major disruption that's happened in our lifestyle. And in the past we are kind of used to disruptions. They've been more technological based. For example, when there was a disruption in, let's say, digital photography area, that paved the way for the death of film cameras. But many of these technology based disruptions normally are known ahead of time, like what we are experiencing today in terms of electric vehicles coming in. We've been following the progress for a few years. We are better prepared to gradually ease into newer ways of doing things. Same way, if I look at even natural calamities such as, let's say, a tsunami or an earthquake, yes, like the pandemic, they occur all of a sudden without notice, but their impact is constrained to a much smaller, geographical area. So, not everybody in the world gets impacted. People who are fine and healthy can pitch in to go and help others. That's not been the case here. At one go, everybody across the world had to go inside, and as Mr. Ramdas said, into claustrophobic conditions. That's the kind of lifestyle change that happened. Now, I'm going to focus a lot more on this human element, to get to how it's linked to management, because if humans are not able to freely move around and carry out their activities freely, it impacts businesses, it impacts services, products, and as a result, the need for management. So we need to really look at what this kind of impact is, look at how that impact can be minimized and how we can recover from there and maybe seize the opportunities. Let's look at the cascading effect. Lifestyle changes lead to modification in terms of needs and priorities. If, let's say, before the pandemic, There were needs like, I had to buy a new pair of shoes, I had to buy, formal clothes and stuff. Suddenly, all that has taken a backseat. So if I was a producer of these kind of goods, now I find that demand and supply, demand has been hit. Likewise, needs for certain other commodities have increased, including like, if the government said only essential services can be delivered during lockdowns, like Dr. Chawla said, it hit the supply chain. People supplying the products and people distributing the products. So demand supply got impacted because of that. And as a result, we saw even working styles and expectations changing. But one important point, which I think really is becoming the operative word today, even though many of us don't acknowledge it, is the word trust. So we saw overnight trust getting eroded in the case of some countries. I don't want to name which country it is, but you immediately saw trust vanish. And that's going to take a long time for that trust to build up. Likewise, even within environments where we live in, trust continues to play an important role. So if I take the example of, let's say, people living by themselves in their homes, it could be senior citizens, or it could be bachelors, or it could be working women in PGs. They are all dependent on, let's say, food being delivered by somebody. Now, if pre-pandemic, the priorities were, is the food tasting good? Is the price right? Today it's becoming, is it being manufactured or made in hygienic environment? And is the delivery taking care of hygiene aspects? And then I will look at cost and other things. So you again look at how suppliers have to continuously focus on building trust of their customers, and customers really rely on that trust not being broken even once. So this is something that is definitely going to carry forward into the new normal. So let's look at next what the challenges. Uncertainty, yes, uncertainty has always been there. See, we are forgetting that even before the pandemic struck, the economy all over the world was sluggish. There was uncertainty with regard to jobs, there were layoffs happening by companies, all of that was there. The pandemic probably accelerated some of these events, and this uncertainty is going to continue for some time to come, which is why we are talking about the new normal and how to manage within that. The uncertainties are reducing in certain situations. Let's look at the other big challenge, which is the digital divide. I think the earlier speakers mentioned about, online is growing, but it's not, to the advantage of, let's say, the entire population. Not everybody is equipped to either deliver their services through online or even to buy. Even in urban environments, we have senior citizens who may be economically doing good. They may have the best of computers, but they don't know how to use them. They may have the best smartphone, but other than using WhatsApp to kind of interact with their children who are in some other countries, they don't know how to place orders or how to enjoy services which are coming online. So this digital divide is not just about availability of hardware and software, but including the knowledge. There are opportunities. In fact, I would say right now, even though I'm not discussing opportunities, there is huge opportunity for people to come up with simple training programs for senior citizens to figure out how to kind of gap or bridge this digital divide. I'm just throwing one up in the air right now. As Mr. Ramdas mentioned, unlearning and learning, I totally agree with him, is a huge challenge. In fact, I've been a teacher, formal teacher for the last 11, 12 years. I teach music. I do teach some amount of management and other things, but, we all know that acquiring a new habit takes lesser time as compared to letting go an old habit and replacing it with a new one. That's what unlearning is all about. But before the pandemic, these were desirable, traits and, abilities that people had to aspire for. I think the pandemic has now made it amply clear that you better be ready to do it, else it's going to be difficult. Logistics wise, I'm breaking this down to two levels. One is personal level and organizational level. It's important to understand because even before the organizational level, we need to understand that any organization, even if I look at a family as an organization or a company or an institution, it's made up of people. And if these individuals have challenges on their personal front, they are not going to be able to perform and deliver, to organizational goals. Now, definitely we'll say that while work from home has presented a lot of benefits, I can assure you, I know a number of people who are running out of space in their house. Maybe they have just 2 rooms and it was sufficient when they were all going to office and working. But today in those 2 rooms, you have the father and the mother, participating in online meetings, and the kids are trying to do online studies, and there is chaos. Even if they have the money to buy extra hardware in terms of PCs and laptops, it's not like it's making it any easier. Even if they use headphones, they have to speak, and they end up disturbing each other. So there are a lot of logistics still to be sorted out, and they cannot simply add another room. That's very obvious, right? Organizational level, it's kind of like, I think Mr. Ramdas mentioned about onboarding. Yes, today you had the infrastructure to accommodate new joinees, but now you got to figure out how to send the same laptop or PC or whatever specialized equipment you need to the homes of these people. And once work from home came, many people have left urban environments and gone back to where they actually came from. Maybe some remote towns, 2-tier cities or 3-tier places. Now even if you manage to send a laptop or a PC, they probably don't have good bandwidth. So there are logistical challenges there as well. Opportunities, let me quote this very old saying which all of us are familiar with, which is necessity is the mother of invention. Now it is traced back to Plato, in whose own words he communicated this. I'd like to highlight the word invention and link it to what we are familiar with industry as innovation, because today we speak more about innovation than invention. Quick way to differentiate the way I like to look at invention versus innovation is, if I look at whoever invented the wheel the first time, I'd say that wheel was an invention. But then if he didn't know or she didn't know how to use the wheel, it just remains as an invention which is of not much use to human being. But whoever figured out how to use that wheel for, maybe for transportation purposes, maybe cut some teeth and make it into gears that could be then used to build machines, that is when true innovation happens, which means it's possible that given India's young population, highly educated population, today, while institutions are delivering and disseminating knowledge, and students are picking up this knowledge and doing extremely well in exams and scoring high results, it is of no use to industry or to humankind if this knowledge has to be achieved in people getting the marks. This knowledge needs to be applied. This knowledge needs to ultimately result in innovation where solutions are created which will help humankind. That is what I think we really need to focus on, and that's where I like to start with. At an individual level, what is it that I can do? I think we at our individual levels need to look at our opportunities and see, where can I change? Where can I leverage? Where can I convert the knowledge that I have into something useful? Now this might lead to an idea which could be entrepreneurial in nature, or it could be like, I may not be keen on entrepreneurship, but I am working somewhere as a manager, and I can use this knowledge to look at how to get the best out of my team, maybe submit better proposals to my senior management. This is how I think we need to look at opportunities, which is ground up, because the issues are being faced at the ground level, and people closer to the ground know more about what needs to be fixed. So that's where this innovation needs to start off with. And when this happens, we will see transformation happening within an organization level. And that's how we say. So that can be encouraged. People at the senior management level, or let's say as a director or an entrepreneur, can motivate his or her team, maybe give some input and say, hey, why don't you apply your thoughts in these directions. So there can be a convergence of this, but then for true innovation to happen, I think it needs to start at individual level, and then if it spreads, we can see that happening across the country. Now, straight away we can see a lot of impetus in terms of like India arguably is producing one of the cheapest vaccines. Not only are we able to supply these vaccines to all Indians here, but we are seeing we are able to export to other countries which need them. We are also seizing this as an opportunity to build the brand value of India at an international level. A couple of slides ago, I mentioned about trust. While certain countries have lost the trust of their fellow countrymen and other countries on the international scene, India is taking advantage of building trust and encouraging others to look towards India, towards making investments and so on. So opportunities are endless if we decide to look at it from the real need perspective, and not just because there is a technology available, let's look at how to use the technology. I think that's where a lot of mistakes are happening. We need to look at what are the problems that need to be solved, and then look at what technology or what approach or what process is required to fix and come up with a solution. Every single problem need not be solved using computers. This is another myth which is out there. We have enough problems which need to be looked into. It could be healthcare. It could be, you look at, for example, the field of mechanical engineering and medicine. There's so much innovation happening. Likewise, if you look at across the domains, we will come across many such opportunities that need to be fixed and should be fixed. Moving on to strategies. Again, I'd like to split it at personal level and then organizational. So personal level, we need to review realign priorities. I was talking to some of my students earlier about, reviewing and this thing, priorities, and easier said than done. What I discovered is many people have not even listed out what their priorities are. So that is a serious challenge. Now, in that sense, I hope the pandemic, I'm not arguing and saying it's good, but one of the things it's made us do is hopefully introspect and take life a little bit more seriously, and now look at priorities. Priorities can be health related, priorities can be financial related, priorities can be education related, can be any of these. But we need to now look at all of these and then figure out what needs to come first, what needs to be attacked first. Take stock of our, like I mentioned, capabilities, financial risks. We all are familiar with the SWOT analysis tool. I seriously recommend that every individual needs to revisit their SWOT if they have done it a couple of years ago. If they have not done it at all, this is the right time to do the SWOT analysis, and then that can be a great simple tool to figure out what opportunities we should chase, and what are the approaches we need to take in order to use our strengths and work on our weaknesses. Likewise, I'd like to highlight the importance of developing agility, people skills. Above all, I look at mindfulness. So, not from a spiritual or meditative approach. I'll just say that when there is chaos, that is exactly the time when we need to be absolutely calm, look at what is happening, take decisions which are more data driven and not based on WhatsApp forwards and hype created by. We need to verify. We need to verify every piece of data coming from everywhere, especially in today's environment when social media, the power of the internet is being used to propagate information which may or may not be to your best interest. Everything needs to be verified, and I think mindfulness will play a big role in making sure we are focused and we are thinking calmly and we are taking decisions which are data driven. Last but not the least, change is inevitable, as all of us know. We need to embrace the change. The first step towards progress would be accepting that this change is inevitable. So, organized level, definitely whatever we looked at a personal level, all of them apply here as well. It's just jumping back to this. Yes, we got to realign priorities, take stock, everything here needs to apply at the organization level as well. Let me look at a few more, which is this is probably not a good time for any entity to look at 5 years and 10 years down the line. That's too long a term, given the uncertainties. We probably need to look at 1 to 2 years, create short-term to mid-term goals, and then review, assess, and then keep working on course corrections. That's probably what we need to do. There's no point in rushing. We have to wait it out. We have to do what we can in these short to mid-term goals. At the same time, depending on our assessments and as the uncertainty reduces, we should go back to thinking the long term. Remote working is not new to Indians at all, right? We've been at it from late 90s, right? From everybody immediately thinks of IT community, but it goes beyond that. We used to have medical transcription. We had so many functions. There were students in the US, taking tuition classes from teachers back in India. It's been happening for a long time. Even before the advent of, good video conferencing or, other facilities, this has been working. We worked well with audio. Today we have more tools. What we will need to do is make sure that everyone is familiar with working with these tools. So another change that's happened, right? Even in an IT situation, even with all this familiarity with working with remote teams, what's interesting is there was a time when a manager had access to his or her team on a daily basis to walk around. So he or she did not have to call for too many meetings to even get a feel for how things are, progressing. Just a walk through the cubicles and this manager would get a feel. Today that is not possible. So this is making many managers very apprehensive because they don't know. Morning I had a chat with my team, told them what they are supposed to do. By afternoon, let's say the manager is now wondering what is happening, right? And so the tendency is to immediately send a WhatsApp message or to call or now this becomes micromanagement. Now these are areas where we really need to learn, every individual needs to learn about how to probably give out smaller packets of, work, tasks so that the constant monitoring need not happen or come up with better ways of working in a team situation. That's probably a good way to enter into the next point which I want to talk about, which is simplification of operations. I think always it's a good thing to do, but all the more reason because a lot of times we get used to a set way of doing it, and if things are not broken, as they say, don't fix it. But therefore, operations can become sluggish, can become a little, overweight. This is the right time to look at simplification. And not only that, part of simplification can also mean look at where it can be digitalized further. And then once it's all in place, if the processes have not been written down, documented so that it can be shared across the board, 100% I would say this is the right time for us to look into it. Because, for example, onboarding, right? Mr. Ramdas spoke about onboarding challenges. Another challenge is when you hire somebody, it should not take this person a hell of a long time to figure out how your company operates. This is where, again, emphasis on process is going to make it a lot easier for this person to figure out where he or she fits in, what needs to happen, job is done. This will also ensure that you don't need 10 people to make something work, right? If the process is well defined, this person has to do it, this person has to verify, else it needs escalated to the next person. That is it, right? You know who to go to. All this leads to agility, which is very much required today, where a company can respond to requirements like that. Most importantly, here I want to talk about distributed decision making, which is we can't afford to operate with the typical pyramid structure where all decisions go up to the top and then, once decided, the, next course of action is filtering down and people have to take action. Not going to work. We have to look at how decision making can go as low as possible, to the people on the ground. And that means I'm saying not only delegate responsibility, but empower people at all layers. So that is very important. Frugality. मैं कंजूसी के बारे में नहीं बात कर रहा हूँ इधर. I want to speak about frugality from the point of view of being conservative. Now we all know generally Indians are conservative, but if you see the last 10-15 years, we have been splurging also. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having so many malls and so many, ways of blowing up our money. Same thing is happening with many startups, many companies as well. You again look at, for example, in certain sectors, the salaries are, I feel, in some situations, way beyond or comparable to those of their counterparts in the US or anywhere else. Now, all of these we need to look at and, tighten up so that we don't overcharge. Dr. Chawla mentioned about if let's say things are going online, real estate is less, is being used less, rents are coming down. But are people really transferring this, extra margin back as lowered costs? I'm not seeing that happening anywhere. So we really need to start transferring that, and then that can help us start to look at whether salaries need to be corrected in certain sectors, etc. These are the ways I think we should take advantage of disruption. With that, I just want to quickly talk about my own personal story, how that's changed. Right? In my introduction, you got to know a little bit about me. But what I have been doing since my corporate days, I've been running a music school. We have a recording studio where we do production, not just music, but other things. I also have an initiative in the area of people development, and I was having a retail store as well. All three in a space of 1,800 square feet. 12th of March, even before the government announced the lockdown, I took the decision that we need to down our shutters. The logic was simple. 5th of March itself, we had started cleaning all the door handles, etc. with Dettol and whatever else. But based on data, I could figure out that those approaches were not going to keep my place clean, because what we are dealing with is not bacteria but a virus. And we all know that Dettol can kill bacteria but not virus. So when you have no such solution to ensure safety of your customers and your students, I said, let's down the shutter. Within 2 weeks' time, it became clear that this was going to become a big, long drawn out affair. So by end of March, we decided that we're going to start testing the online approach. We did trial classes, and by 1st of April, we were completely online with everything except for the retail piece. Right? 10th of April, I looked at the scenario and said, this is definitely going to be a 18 to 24 month affair. No point in hanging on to this real estate like Dr. Chawla said. We decided we'll close. The impact is only to the retail piece. And today that's the situation we are in. Everything has gone online. I will not say my business reduced. It's only increased. Because the moment we went online, our ability to provide services to our clients expanded from the 3 or 4 kilometer radius to going international also. So that is where we are. Now, anytime if I want, I can go back and restart the retail, but that's a choice we'll have to do later. So the point is this, we got to take the calls, we got to be moving fast whenever the time comes. I'm reaching the end of my slides, trying to stick to the time. The time has come for when we look at how to manage in a situation like this, the approach should be go make it happen. No other approach. And the way I think it can be done is we need to apply thought. We should not be reacting, we should be responding, which means think, look at what can be done differently. If you're coming up with a new solution, get into the details. Make sure that you thought about all scenarios. We shouldn't take the approach of let's try this for 1 week, then we'll switch. No, remember the word trust. You try and fail 3-4 times, your customers are going to stop trusting you. Winning that trust back is going to be extremely difficult. This happens at individual and organizational level. Once you come up with a plan, be very proactive. Don't dilly-dally, don't wait. Take the decision. And when you do that, be a very assertive about it. Make sure that you stick by your decisions and only do course corrections as needed. Ultimately, all this will lead to us becoming agile. That's my simple submission. And interestingly, if you are flexible enough to bring about change, like how I'm going to do it now, these words, if you were to sort it a little differently, it will result in the word adapt. You look at it, the same words, assertive, detailed, agile, proactive, think, translates. This is the mantra. We have to keep adapting to situations, and hopefully look at some of the strategies that I spoke about in terms of how to adapt, and then go make it happen. I'd like to close by saying this is a picture taken in the middle of the pandemic, sometime in September, October. That's me and my daughter enjoying what we did, which was no maids. We were enjoying the cleaning process rather than cribbing about it or saying this, life has thrown lemons at us. As they say, if it throws lemons at us, we should make lemon juice and drink it. So that's the other point about enjoying whatever we have to do. And that's another point I want to make, which is we could be, vice president, we could be director, we could be whatever on the org chart. But if there's a piece of work that needs to be done and it's right in front of our eyes, if we have the time, we need to roll up our sleeves and go do it and not look at it as this is my job or your job. That's how we need to go make it happen. So with that, I really thank you for this opportunity again. I hand over the control back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your knowledge with us. It surely helped us understand all the challenges, opportunities, and strategies in the new normal. I would now like to take an opportunity to introduce our chief guest, Professor Dr. Nagendra Chaudhary, sir, Vice President and Head, Academic Relations and Learner Success at Times Professional Learning. He has 27 years experience of teaching, research, consulting, and institutional building. He has done his MPhil and PhD from Osmania University and started his career as a dean at IBS Hyderabad, where he used to develop case studies in all the functional areas of management. He has also developed around 2,800 case studies in IBS Case Development Center, which were bought by some of the best business schools like Kellogg, Stanford, LBS, LSE, etc. He has helped setting up institutions like ENPC Executive MBA program in Cochin, Sri Ramakrishna Postgraduate College, and ICFI Business School Development Center. I would now request you, sir, to please enlighten us with your valuable words.
Thank you, Priyanka, and I hope you can hear me, right? Yeah, can you, yeah, yes.
You're audible, yes, sir.
Great. Once again, thank you all of you, and thank you, Dr. Wani, and all the organizers for making me part of this wonderful event. And I thought I'll spend a few minutes to share my perspectives. And may I request Priyanka to let me know when I should actually get out, because I think we have a lot of agenda to be covered, right? So with that, let me begin what I want to share. I think I'm going to take the perspective of business schools, because not from the business side, but then the business school side. And then in the last 1 year, definitely things have changed, and people have come to the drawing board again to rethink as to what they are doing and what they want to do and things like that. And I'm sure you would have seen a lot of headlines. I think some of the headlines that I wanted to capture are here. There's a beautiful story that came up in Mint, and which said about business schools face a moment of reckoning, and then many colleges getting closed because a lot of seats went begging. And then even globally, I think there's a lot of uproar about the kind of direction that business schools have been taking and the kind of direction that they should be taking. And the most famous one has come from Dr. Ram Prasad, who said, there's a beautiful article, published as the future of higher management education. Now, it's not a quiz, but then it's good to reflect on this one. Who said it? There is one gentleman who's one of the most famous CEO in the world right now, and he had the audacity, or I quote unquote, to say this one on December 19, 2020. And this is what happened during what is called as the Wall Street Journal CEO Council Annual Summit. And then this is what he said: too many MBAs are polluting companies' ability to think creatively and give customers what they really want. And this actually has created uproar across the globe, so much so that some of the deans of some of the best business schools or Ivy League schools had to defend themselves and also to share their perspective. But at the end of the day, maybe each one of us can look at the positive side or the negative side. But then I'm sure there is some element of truth in what he's saying, because ultimately it is all about, do you create the thinkers or doers kind of thing. I'm sure there is always a debate about it. You could just create thinkers and then who want to sit in the ivory towers and then start dictating things to other people, or do you create people who are actually be doers as well. So that's always a debate between execution versus strategy, and therefore people say 90% execution versus a 10% strategy, or is it reverse, where 90% strategy and the 10% execution. So there is always a debate, but you and I know what actually works for each one of us, work for each one of our institutions and things like that, right? So, and by the way, who said it? The answer to this one is, I'm sorry. So this is what Elon Musk is a gentleman who said it, right? He's the one who created this, who unruffled the feathers in the world, and then, like I said, a lot of deans of different business schools had to defend. And I'm sure you would have heard about all the statements at World Economic Forum, and I don't want to get into the details as such, but I think the point is very clear. I think looking at our own personal level, the kind of thing that you and I studied, and the kind of thing that we are teaching our children, the students now, and the kind of thing that our children would be studying, and then the kind of thing that they would be applying. 65% of the children entering primary school today, and that is what is stated in last year, by the way. So entering primary school today will ultimately end up working in completely new job types that don't exist. In fact, you would have seen some very interesting book titles called this, and it's a very famous book title, by the way, and it's a very most sought after book in the area of AI and ML, that is Humans Need Not Apply. That's the title of the book, and which is one of the best-selling titles in Amazon. So you know what it is, right? I think the kind of thing that you and I end up teaching, and the kind of thing that the students should be prepared for. So therefore, there is no dissonance between the classroom and the shop floor, and that's all there. Right? So therefore, what I want to spend a little time is that how do we do that? So for me, the way I look at it is that the new classroom law, LAW, right? L stands for listening, A stands for asking, and W stands for watching. So in a 60-minute session, we would like to, that's where the first proof of action starts for all of it. That's a reality. That's a moment of truth. So therefore, being teachers, I'm sure we would like to spend, and because we don't want to give us some yarn sessions here, but then something which are actionable items. That's something that I would love to share with all of you. And this is something I've done with a lot of my colleagues, and it worked well, and therefore I thought I should share with you. So in a 60-minute session, please, the children that you and I are addressing, right, the students that you and I are talking to, they can listen to maximum for maybe about 15 minutes, right? After that, attention spans are gone, and that's the reason why people say that the mind is like a monkey mind, right? So that's what people say. But then if you look at the first 4 letters in the word monkey, a monk, right? M-O-N-K. So the choice is very clear. Do we prepare students to continue to be monkey mind, having that monkey minds, quote unquote, or do you prepare them like monks so that they can concentrate, they can train? Because the most important thing is, the sitting and then concentrating in what is being said itself is a great deal, and that's a great phenomenon, right? So therefore, one is the listening part, other one is asking questions. Please encourage every child, every student to ask questions, and only when our ideas are being contested, when we are challenged, that's how the new insights would emerge. And the last one, but not the least one, is that please, map your courses, map your session in such a way that every session also has this component of what is called as watching. That means, for example, let's say you have, I'm sure, each one of us plan for our session, 60-minute session is what we need to plan for, right? Now, like I said, the first 15 minutes about, listening, they can listen only for 15 minutes. After that, you're just pushing them through the agenda, nothing more than that. Other one is about asking, please encourage them to, because asking questions is one of the most important skills of any manager, or definitely for a leader as well. But then now I can go on talking about asking questions, because this is a very important element. In fact, we teach almost for 1.5 days the art of asking questions. It's a simple word, simple expression, simple number. It can be syntax, it can be footnote, anything. The point is that how do we ensure that we develop that skill in each one of our students, right? Other one is the watching. Like I said, watching. So can you create, can you curate, some of the video content, maybe from small video clips on YouTube, or maybe movie clips that you can think of, or any TEDx video, whatever you call it. But the point is that, for example, let's say you're talking about, you're teaching about accounting or HR, brand management, or let's say brand valuation, whatever you call it. But then see if there's any possibility of making sure that every one of your session, whatever, because you know that you are the best person in terms of delivering that curriculum. right, or the syllabus, or whatever you call it. So every session has to be mapped for this new classroom law, because that's what it is all about, trying to understand whether these guys are learning from us or not. And then, so for today's session, I thought I will just concentrate on this little slide and nothing more than that. And like a request to Priyanka, please let me know when I need to get out so that you will have not much of disturbance from my side. So the learner for me is all about this one. The learning styles, E stands for empathy and emotional control, anecdotes, and in fact, Mr. Ravi was talking about the storytelling part of it, right? The anecdotes and the anecdotal evidences, reflections and reinforcement. N stands for neighborhood stories, E stands for expert series, and R stands for so learner. The new normal, the new learner in this scenario is going to be something like this for me, and therefore let me just spend a little time on this. I'm sure each one of us have been student. We have been a student ourselves, whatever position that you are in, and each one of us have learned in one of these ways, or maybe a combination of this. So in the world, wherever you work in the world, whether you're in India or Los Angeles or in whichever part of the world, now these are the only 7 styles through which people learn. So either it can be visual, that is spatial, right? You prefer using the pictures, images, and the spatial understanding. Otherwise, oral, you prefer using sound and music, and then social. These 7, right? The point is that this is the anticlimax here is that we end up teaching in one way. But imagine for a moment you have the 60 students in a classroom. So how many learning styles? 60 by 7, right? So that many learning. So that means now probably only a certain number of students, right, would be amenable to the kind of style, the teaching that you're doing, and therefore the remaining set of students are going to be put off. Therefore, the efficacy of the very efficacy of the teaching is, learning is going to be lost. So therefore, like people say, operation successful and patient diet kind of thing. That's the reason why we don't want to have teachers who are amazingly great in teaching, but then we want to make sure that we have teachers who would enable and who can facilitate learning. It's not just about teaching; it is more about learning. Because, like I said, for me, the way I look at it is that I keep sending my children to the schools. I mean, of course, right now it's online. But the point is that it's not enough if they're attending classes. That's the first part of it. Most important thing, what have they learned out of that, right? So that's therefore we have to be ensuring that why this is important, that we have to be alive to the fact that in your classroom, in your virtual classroom or physical classroom, you have to assume. Why do you have to? You have to realize that all the student that you have, each student would come with 1 or 2 of this learning styles. So therefore, you have to make sure that your teaching style, right, is amenable to all of them. For example, let's say I know I know in one of the I don't know to name it, and one of the I went and I have had almost a day-long session with one of the IIM faculty about case studies and things like that. And I identified one professor, very senior professor, by the way. He's a senior professor in economics. He got up and he was just short of slapping me. His point of view is that you cannot teach economics through case studies. You cannot teach. Then I asked him, sir, is it your opinion or is it a fact? He said, forget about it. All that I'm saying is that you cannot teach. I asked him, so may I know the reason? He said that of all the subjects, economics is the only subject which is evolved vis-a-vis all other management subjects, and therefore it does not have to be taught through case studies. It has to be taught through the precepts or the theoretical constructs, or whatever you call it. That's it. That's his point of view. Just imagine for the moment there. Now, of course, that's his point of view, and therefore he will. That's the reason why we have what is called as, I'm sure, since all of you great teachers, that we have something called as a biases. All of us, including me. But then point is that how many times I go to the classroom absolutely not having any bias whatsoever, absolutely no bias. And that's very difficult. In fact, the learning has to come from the teacher part of it. So therefore, my strong appeal and request and urge to each one of you to ensure that you be alive to the fact that every child that comes to your classroom is having 1 or 2 of these learning styles, and multiplication of that depending on the number of students that you have. So therefore, you will have to do that, what is called as a learning style inventory. So in the beginning of the course, please do that so that you can appeal to everyone. Every child is important to us, right? So that's the first one. And then the second one is about empathy. Like you said, the less said, the better. And then we can go on talking about it. If you just Google about leadership, I'm sure you will get, lakhs and lakhs of pages. But, this is one of the most sought after word, the leadership, and you know how many thousands of lakhs of books have written on things like that. But at some point of time, the research have come together and they're debating about what is that one quality that distinguishes a normal leader from a world leader. And after so much of brainstorming and research, the world has found out that there is one quality that distinguishes a typical, I mean, he's also a leader or she's a leader, but then a world leader demonstrates always, exhibits always this beautiful thing called empathy. Unfortunately, fortunately, empathy is something that I cannot give as a pill to somebody else or injection to somebody else. It has to be felt, it has to be demonstrated, it has to be exhibited. And then how do you do that? And then it has to start from each one of us, right? So therefore, my request to all of you is that you have got to be empathizing with the learners that each one of you have it. In fact, I used to go one step further. Maybe one step below, whichever way you look at it. I used to tell all my colleagues, faculty colleagues, that if you want to be, like you would have heard about what is called level 5 leadership, right? Now, if you want to replicate the same thing at the level of what is called as a level 5 teaching, or let's say level 5 teacher, who is a level 5 teacher? And then I've worked on something like that. But for paucity of time, let me just tell you that if you want to be a great teacher, a level 5 teacher, you will have to see a family behind every child. Because please don't let your vision need not stop only at the seeing of a student. Behind that student, there is a family whose aspirations are reflected in this child, in this student. They might be bad, they may not be good enough, but the point is that that's not what we are meant for. If everybody is good, then we need to start an ashram. We don't need a business school, right? It has to be a factory, and therefore, you have an input which is not so good, you process it, so the process quality is measured, the output quality is measured by the process quality, and therefore our processes have got to be so good that we all get up and deliver the mandate. And one of the important things that is required definitely is the empathy part of it, right? So empathy, like we define here, is seeing with the eyes of another, listening with the ears of another, and feeling with the heart of another. And you can see on the right hand side of the slide here, the spectrum of empathy ranges from pity to compassion. Compassion is the highest one. Need not be having a religious overtones to this one. Even at a very personal and very professional level, we are looking at the empathy. I feel with you. And then during the pandemic has actually given served as a mirror to all of us about this empathy, and I hope we carry forward that to our classroom, because like I said, that's a unit of our assessment, that's a unit of functioning for each one of us, right? And then anecdotal evidence, like a storyteller, I think this is something that I urge, right? It is all about whichever subject that you teach, for example, financial accounting, operations management, quantitative methods, and sometimes people feel that these subjects are so boring. How do you make it interesting? That's what the fun is, right? Every subject, let me tell you, I remember, I think we have chartered accountants here, right? For example, let's say in accounting, we have this accounting concepts and conventions, right? And then there's a beautiful thing called as, right, business entity concept. And of course, for every concept, there's a beautiful story, let me tell you. There's the history, and that's why I'm a great fan of what is called as a business history. As a course, that's one, but each one of the subject has a beautiful history, and then therefore, once you dig deeper into it, you know what I'm saying. For example, business entity concept, right? Now, it was in the early 18th century, and there's a beautiful company, a textile company in Manchester. As you understand, Manchester was called as a textile capital of the world. Then, of course, it has lost that sheen, and it's no longer the textile capital of the world. One of the days, so all the shareholders that belonged to this company were called for an AGM, the annual general meeting. Everybody that belonged to the company, everyone that belonged to the company were assembled, and they were housed in a beautiful hall. Everybody except the people who lent money to the company, that's the creditors, were outside the company. So everybody else was there in the company except the creditors who were outside. So the meeting went on very well. Around 4 o'clock also in the evening, the building caught fire, and everybody who was sitting in the hall were reduced to ashes. Everybody, right from the president to the peon of this company, everybody were unfortunately killed in that in a tragic incident. And people who are outside the company, that is the creditor, the guys who lend the money, they approach the court of law and then ask, sir, and this is the situation, we lend money and there is no one to talk to, there is no one who would be giving us money, so therefore, and that's when the court of law passed a judgment saying that, quote unquote, in the eyes of law, in the eyes of law, the business is different from the owner who started it. And that became the foundation for business entity concept. And likewise, everything, I mean, you look at it, for example, those of you teaching marketing, right? There is something called as what is a TPC, it's called as the total product concept. It has got that circle, inner wheel circle. It's awesome that is given with your limit. And then read the best one, and so that you understand what is the origination, so that it becomes a storytelling. Otherwise, it's just a worrying, So, and therefore, my biggest worry has always been that two teachers end up becoming just the transmitters. That means what I know, what I learned from Dr. Vani, what I learned from Priyanka, what I learned from Ravi, what I learned from Ms. Das, or somebody else, I just learned it, and then I transmit to somebody else. Then that's going to be very boring. So it has to be originality, so that people come to the classroom because they don't find the one that you're telling in the classroom anywhere else, because you are synthesizing information and putting them in a beautiful, palatable way to each one of them. That's where the classes become very interesting. So therefore, I would urge and I would request, I would appeal to each one of you to develop this beautiful art of becoming a storyteller. Every session, you've got to be making whatever course that you're teaching. I wish I had more time to interact with all of you for each of the subjects. The point is that, trust me, this is something that we have done it, and then I'm sure it's quite possible. Other one is, of course, it's just just to break the monotony. Any quick ideas as to what is this one? Of course, for lack of time, let me I'm skipping it, but I'll share this, right? It's a wonderful thing, the previous one that I was telling you, this really happened, and then this is what we're looking at. The other one is in the learner format. Remember, we said in the learner, L stands for the learning styles, E stands for empathy, and R right now what we're looking at is the A right is about anecdotal evidences, the LEA, and now we are looking at the fourth letter in that learner word, and R stands for reflections and reinforcement. I think given that we are going to teach online or even in a physical world, I think it's always good to read. When you take a pause, maybe about you have taught for 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is, and then take a pause for 5 minutes, reflect. Please ask everyone to reflect, right? And then reinforce, because ultimately the mind needs it. If you might think that it is not needed, but then please remember, from the point of view of a child, from the point of view of a learner, right? Because all of us have got to be learner-centric. From that point of view, it's always good to reinforce, and I've seen it happening with some of the finest faculty in the world, maybe from Harvard, Kellogg, Stanford, etc. All of them beautiful teachers. For example, you look at somebody like Bala Balachandran of Kellogg's, who started this beautiful institution called the Great Lakes Institute of Management in India. It's a fantastic teacher in accounting. I don't think the world can see a better accounting teacher than him. At least I had the privilege of being a student for some time. Amazing. I mean, he's the first ever non-American, non-American to be on the Federal Reserve. It's a great honor, right? I mean, of course, like I said, you will have your own teachers who have taught us with the great best practices. I'm sure each one of us would have. And then please ensure that we follow this one almost religiously, because we are focused on the student learning, not just about the teaching alone. And then the next one, of course, for all the time I'm skipping, and this is all interesting stuff. And then the next one is N in the letter N in the learner word. That's about neighborhood stories. It's very, very important. We can go on talking about it. Whatever subject you're teaching, please look out for small stories here and there, right? It need not be world-class companies. It need not be Fortune 500 companies. It can be a small thing, because ultimately what we need to develop is a beautiful, very strong, edified foundation. I remember one faculty from IMA, and he's one of the most sought after IMA faculty in strategy area. Right now, he's one of the first faculty that has been recruited for ISB, by the way. He's still one of the great professor, amazing professor in ISB. He used to tell us that beautiful story. Every year he used to start this strategy course. Remember, it is IMA. You can imagine the kind of students that would go to IMA. But the point is that he used to start every year's strategy course with a beautiful case study, just about maybe 200 pages kind of thing. And what this case study is about? This case study is about a small photocopy store, right, or the Xerox store as you call it, which is, by the way, that those of you who visit IMA, that is there even today, just outside IMA main gate, right? And he wrote a beautiful case study, and then he he used to administer that case study as an inaugural strategic case in IMA. Imagine what is the net worth of photocopy store? Maybe about 10,000 bucks in those days, maybe 20,000 bucks, maybe 2 lakh. That's it. And what is the size of this company? Hardly about 2-3 employees. But then the point is that it is not about the quantity, but it is about the quality, right? So therefore, he used to instill all the foundational and maybe the most important elements of strategic management course through that case study, and people used to love that case study, and so much so that they used to replicate to even the bigger companies, because it's the same thing. Maybe the size is different, maybe the complexity is definitely different, but the point is that it is the same principle that you might like to apply using different lens. That's about it. So, and for example, if you're teaching customer relationship management or other subjects, make sure that for the first time, see if you can pick up a beautiful story from your own neighborhood. So start with your own town, city, maybe a state, maybe a country, maybe a continent, and then the rest of the world. And that's how it has to be expanded. And that's what I would always encourage my faculty to do that. So look out for beautiful neighborhood stories, because I'm sure you will have it. For example, let's say you're talking about customer relationship management, right? An auto driver can be one, a florist can be one, maybe in a hospital, maybe the borough, the guy who sells vegetables on the cart, right? Who pulls the borough in your street. It can be anyone, because he remembers your name, right? And then he treats you well, and then he gives you the respect. That's it. And that's what connects. So therefore, because people have to have an emotional connect and for them to have an economic connect. So first thing that we need to address is, do students, because I can talk about a company in Argentina, Brazil, and I can talk about it, but if the students have not about it, not have seen it, not have gone there, right, they may not experience, they may not appreciate it. They might clap because the faculty said it, but then for them to have the conviction that yes, this is something that I can do it, and that needs a neighborhood story, so that they can check, they can contest us, right? So therefore, please look out for neighborhood. That's a N part of the word learn, in the word learner, right? N. And the next one is, again, I'm sorry, I'm skipping time for want of time. This really happened. This has really happened in one of the most famous, quiz restaurant in the world, right? And then the E stands for expert lecture series. While I was at Bennett, I used to start this. I started this one while I was there for 1 year. I'm sure each one of you must be. Big thing about this expert series lectures is that while I'm sure every business school must be getting people to give guest lectures, whatever you call it, but then the way I used to do is that I used to encourage my students to scout for people and then do an entire thing by themselves. And so much so that I also told to tell them that I'm going to evaluate the final interview that you've done with the guest speaker. I'm not interested in just about he's speaking to the audience. That's okay. That's important. One is you scout, you get his permission, you get his confirmation, you fly him down or fly her down in case if it is wanted, and then conduct the lecture, and then give him a beautiful memorabilia. All that is done. But then the one that I'm going to evaluate you for is that how good have you interviewed? Maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. That's okay. But the point is that you are involving the learners, that's the students here. And therefore, expert lectures is whatever you call it. But then the point is that please involve them, because these guys are very good, let me tell you. The students are, whichever school that you come from, I come from, they're all absolutely gifted people. The only thing is and each one of us are different. We have got to be, by the way. We don't have to be the same. Then if everybody's same, that's going to also be equally boring, right? So therefore, the other one is that expert lecture series have as many as possible, especially those, either, depending on the semester, and also when you have electives especially, right? For example, let's say if you're teaching marketing, HR, operations, strategy, whatever you call it, right? But the point is that you know which are the subjects that you have. For example, let's say compensation management, right? Now, can you get varieties of perspectives? Somebody from the absolutely government-owned company, then you have a startup, right? Compensation management, startup, absolutely different, and established companies, so that people can have a different perspectives, right? Because the textbooks, for example, let's say, right, HRM. I think Dressler is one of the most sought after textbook in the world for HRM. Now, professor has given some interesting construct. That's okay. But then what's happening right now is something else, right? For example, in the wake of what happened last year, I think you would have seen in the wage bill that is passed in India, there's a lot of uproar in the country. I'm sure in the last 5, 6, 7 months you would have seen it, right? They have consolidated almost about 32 laws related to wages, and then made just into about 11 of them. But the point is that, it can be any subject, trust me, please involve the students to have that expert lecture series. That's a E part of the learner. And the last one is definitely the revision part of it. I mean, the periodicity, I would leave it to all of you, but then ensure that we do have the time to revise, because please, because it cannot only one way. And please remember, right? One of the anticlimax. You might agree with me or you might violently disagree with me. I'm okay with that. But let me share my perspective. You know what happens? The beauty or the ugly part of the teacher versus the student is that as a teacher, what I do, every session I keep teaching, right? Every session I keep teaching. That means I'm preparing for my session only for that one session. Now, when I'm testing the student, now you see what is the dichotomy here? When I'm testing the student, I'm testing the students for all that they've taught in the entire semester. How is it possible? I mean, I don't think that's correct. And that is the reason why we have this idea of what is called as a continuous evaluation. So therefore, our pace and his pace of learning also matches, or I won't say exactly, but then almost there kind of thing. So therefore, please remember some of these nuances of learning, right? And therefore, we make it interesting. So therefore, that's the last part of a learner. So I'll just go back once again, and like I said, it's all about this one, learning styles, where I mentioned about the 7 learning styles and why it's important. And then one is empathy. Please ensure that we demonstrate that empathy. First of all, we have to decide that, yes, I need to do that. And the best way to do is empathy, is to demonstrate, exhibit it. There's no point in saying that I have this kind of thing, I want to do it. Other one is, like I said, anecdotal and anecdotal evidences. Again, they go with neighborhood stories, but most important thing is keep looking out for, and in a small story, for example, let's say, what's a branding, right? Or let's say, what's the full form of Cisca, right? It's a very interesting story. Cisca looks very, you ask randomly some people might think that it's a foreign brand. That is a homegrown brand that is given in Pune. The company is from Pune. And then, in fact, the Cisca stands for Sant Yogi, Sri Yogi Sant Krupa Anant. Sri Yogi Sant Krupa Anant. That's a Cisca full name. But then when you look at Cisca LED lights, which was famously popularized by Irfan Khan, and before his unfortunate death, it looks very interesting and kind of thing. So therefore, look out for these things that students like it, because ultimately you have to plant in them the love for learning. And please, for me, I continue to believe that it's very difficult for someone to say that I learned from somebody else. It's impossible, because they learn, each one of us learn when we want it, right? So therefore, anecdotal evidences, reflections, reinforcement, like you said, keep reinforcing after, again, depending on the subjects, because broadly in MBA, you will have management, basically you'll have two different subjects, hardcore subjects and softcore. Hardcore meaning almost like science-like, in the sense that whether you teach in New York or you teach in New Zealand or teach in New Delhi, it's the same. For example, let's say IRR, or you calculate, you might have a different example, but the principle is same. Or let's say law of demand curve, it's the same. You can't write inverse slope curve for a demand curve. You can't do that, because that's not the law. But then if you look at the softcore subjects, which are based on social sciences, they've got definitely the art part of it. So therefore, please ensure, depending on the subject, reinforce that. And the neighborhood stories, please look out for from your own town, from your own city, and then from your district, maybe state, maybe the region, maybe a country, and then maybe continent, and maybe rest of the world. But the most important thing, please ensure that any story that they should be able to connect at some, of course, you need to quote some of the best examples in the world as best practices, as benchmark. That's okay. But if that number becomes too much, you're actually creating in them a sense of dissonance, because they're not going to work there immediately, right? Maybe some of them might end up, but definitely not immediately. Expert series, please encourage all the children, the students to scout. They do that themselves, right? And the last one is the revision, right? So I think with that, I would say, right? And in fact, so develop this mindset. Ultimately, it's all about not just one mindset, but I would say it's a CEO mindset. C stands for customer, and O stands for ownership, and the employer. We need to have in the same mind only all three of them, not one. And CEO is not in one position that I get only at the end of my career. It's not. I'm a CEO right from the day one. I can be starting as a small management trainee, or maybe asking for a professor. But the point is that all of us have to have the CEO mindset. CEO doesn't mean Chief Executive Officer. CEO also stands for the customer, owner, and employer mindset. And lastly, I think the biggest mistake in life is never taking one, right? And then then again, I'm a great fan of using a lot of movies. We have developed the world's first ever movie-based case studies, and they're doing extremely well. They're doing extremely well, and this is something that I picked up from one of the movies. You haven't really lived your life unless you have a lot to regret. And the question is that what you have to decide is what to regret for. And then lastly, facts tell and stories sell. So therefore, let each one of us become great storytellers, especially during, of course, not the concocted stories, by the way, but then real stories. I'm sure let's scout for them so that we reach out to our learners, right? From all of us here at TSW and Time Professional Learning, once again, thank all of you for this wonderful opportunities. If I could share my perspectives, and right, and then I'm sorry if I had to skip because of time. But then, in case if there is something else that you would like to me to either challenge or contest or seek any clarification, you're most welcome. I'm sure Dr. Wani and other people have my email and other details. You're most welcome. But the most important thing is that keep making the difference, because all of you are gifted. Each one of you are a gifted person, and especially being a teaching, because like people have said it, there are only 3 noble professions in the world, right? First one is doctor, other one is a preacher, other one is a teacher. And if any one of them is start getting polluted, that will be the beginning of the end of civilization. And you're already seeing some signs of it all, unfortunately. And let's not be part of it. Let's recreate the great legacy that all of us are really proud of, right? So thank you so much, and appreciate your time given to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for giving us this beneficial information. It was really a privilege to hear your words. I now request Director General Professor Dr. C.P. Chawla, sir, Professor Dr. Vani ma'am, Professor Dr. Monica Kulshrestha ma'am, and Dr. Mohita Mathur ma'am to kindly release the conference proceeding. I request all the team members to come up on stage for a photograph. Thank you, everyone. I would now like to request Professor Dr. Vani ma'am to deliver vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. So it's my privilege to express the vote of thanks from IITM fraternity. And I would like to express my thanks to our chief guest. He took a lot of time for us. And I still remember the day when he was our professor, actually. And I still remember the day when he taught us for the first time, and we used to fight to sit in the front bench. And that the same feeling which I got now also, sir, and I'm very happy that you took time for us and you came here and you delivered the speech for us. I I would look forward if at all we can have you offline also. And I'd like to express my sincere thanks to our guest of honor, Mr. Tamil Selvan Ramdas. And he is from Dubai and he is an old friend of mine, but still he took time for me and for this institution. And I express from the whole institution, thank you, sir, for dedicating so much of time for us. And our keynote speaker, C. Ravi, sir, and I would like to personally thank you, and because you gave us very good inputs relating to the management in new normal, and it was really, you expressed your story as well, how your school has been closed and it has been reopened, and yes, it is, everybody has the same story. We have closed in the lockdown and we are just open in the new normal, and we are living in the new normal. Thanks a lot, sir, for giving so much of time for us. And I express my sincere thanks from IITM fraternity to all of you and having sparing so much of time for us. And I would like to express my sincere thanks to all the faculty members and especially the conference team who took lots of efforts to making this particular event as a success. And I would like to express my thanks to the students as well who have joined online for this conference. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now it's the end of our inaugural session. We will resume the conference at 1:30 p.m. Thank you, ma'am.